All right. All right. I think we're recording. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but hopefully it will. Um, anyway, let's start with Anika. Feedback on presentation.
Anika can talk.
JP's coming in about like 5 minutes.
Okay. So it's more about like how Anika structured her literature review. I think it was nice how she started off with like a broader topic of thermal shock studies, and then later on she builds on she creates a chain of studies that like leads to her end result of her what is that? Her research. And then that's also what I felt like it's like a line that follows through nicely when I read her literature review and edited it. I can still see that in the presentation.
I thought it was like easy to understand because like until I saw her lit review presentation, I still didn't really understand her scientific stuff. But like that lit review really helped me understand what she's actually doing.
I think her introduction was really clear, and like the way that she described it, like led really well into her research. The introduction, that was really nice.
Yeah, those are all good points.
So like how you like just like Eileen said, whenever you moved on to another source, before you ended that source, so like before Anika ended that source, she would state like what the issues of the paper was and what the main point of the paper was, and then how that would lead to these like the smaller like points it contributed to her establishing of her question. So it was kind of just like Alan's. It was like whenever she moved on to another source, it was like her question was becoming more clear and clear, and in the end when she addressed the gap, it just dived smoothly into her question, and then like we could understand why she decided to look into her question and then the relevance. And throughout her literature review we could see her relevance, her context, and everything was mixed in very well. And like when like from my relevance was mostly in the introduction section, hers was like throughout the whole thing. And then that was interesting.
Yeah, one thing I liked about it was you talked about ectotherms on land, and the thing that I thought you addressed well there was or the thing that it revealed to me was where your curiosity was and why you chose to look at that one. Because at first I thought, what does this have to do with her project particularly? But you talked about what you wanted to learn from that particular source, which I thought was helpful. And I think if you're doing that with all your sources, or at least showing where your thinking is, you're justifying or talk. I mean, not only do you need to talk about what that paper says, which you do, but also kind of what led you to that, maybe. Or I don't know that you need to do that in your paper, but I thought it was good in the presentation. One thing at the end, I don't know, and maybe I missed it, and I imagine it's addressed in your paper, but you talked about all of these different ectotherms, and I was kind of curious, and I know we've talked about this in class, but where Saipan kind of fits into the study, or if that's even necessary to look at or discuss the location and how that compares to the locations of the other sources that you looked at.
So Saipan fits in because it's not like specifically Saipan that fits in, but tropical ectotherms are the most vulnerable, and that's what one of my studies says. And Saipan, by definition, is a tropical place, and it also has a lot of these specific snails that I'm studying. So that's like the only, and it was just convenient. That's really why I chose Saipan. There was not really a really deep evaluation of Saipan because it was like I needed an animal, so I need to go out and get some snails, and Saipan was like where I had to get it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's enough. And I assume that that's addressed in the paper too. So that's one thing that I didn't get in the presentation, but I'm not worried about that being a justification in your paper. I was just curious, how many sources do you have?
So I have
Oh.
about, like, I mention a few more in my lit review, but really, like, I go into detail about 4 sources in my lit review, and then I have like around 4 sources that I use in my intro, and then in my discussion I have to clean it up a little, but it's also going to include around like three sources. Oh, and in my methodology, I think I have one extra that hasn't been mentioned in the lit review.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious where you're at with that. Any other feedback?
No.
Yeah, I thought this was well done. You talked about the beneficial acclimation hypothesis and how that is the question that you wanted to figure out within your own study. That sort of like for me that simplified your study, and like I forget who said it, Eileen? No, Malika. I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of what you were studying, but after this, it felt much clearer. I thought you did a nice job with that and showing us what you studied and where your study fits in. All right. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to Sam. We'll have to do this without Sam, but she can see our recording, hopefully, if I don't mess anything up. All right, feedback for Sam?
I think overall, like, she did her introduction was like, I think it's necessary to define what corals are and like their structures and stuff, because that's what her entire study is based off of. But I don't think she needs to talk about it for that long of a time, because it's supposed to just be looking at, like, a lit review is just supposed to be looking at like the sources with maybe a little intro, but she put like a very long intro down.
Yes, like for me, it also felt like the focus of the research was kind of explaining what her study was, like how she went into the measuring sticks and where she would be doing it and how it's broken up. And then it seemed to be giving the background information, but like it didn't really give me like while most of the literature review was like a comparison between similar researchers or like researchers that kind of show like how you scope down into your paper, it seemed like her literature was like kind of giving background information on like how they do stuff and then some hypothesis that exist within like how fast they grow. And so it was kind of different from other.
Yeah, that one I agree. I wrote that on my notes too.
Yeah, I think so. But then I feel like if it's a tiny bit shorter, her introduction part, like of the literature review, I think if that's a tiny bit shorter, I think it would lead really nice into her sources and like why she's choosing the topic she did, like how Anika did it. But then I think the transition was really smooth though.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, with Sam's literature review, she felt like she was given a lot of almost too much background, and in the written part, she was trying to figure out if she needs to shorten that or make it a separate section. But yeah, maybe we got more of the introduction than sounds like what you're saying is it's too much introduction, not enough lit review. And had she looked more at, because she talks, I mean, mainly talking about microfragmentation and genotype and which of those, I'm glad Sam's not here to criticize what I'm about to, how I'm about to mess up her research with my own words, but how microfragmentation and genotype, how those things matter or don't matter with growth rate. Is that how everyone else understands it?
Yeah.
And I think she touches on studies with both of those things, but maybe diving deeper into what those studies say. I don't know. Is that fair, or did you guys find something different?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I don't think this will be a problem in the paper, but there were times where I felt like she was talking to us. We were familiar with her project, but I think for presentation purposes, like talking in a way where the people that are listening are hearing it for the first time. Because she talked about NOAA, and of course we know she's working with NOAA, but like maybe some more detail on that, like where is this NOAA group working? How long have they been working on it? Why are they doing this? But again, I think that's just considering the audience. Any other thoughts?
Mr. Witt, if we are going to include data about, information about like NOAA, should that come in the introduction, or does it not really matter if it comes in lit review or introduction? Because I have to introduce PSS, and I still don't know if I should do it in my introduction or my lit review, because I don't really connect to my research in general in my introduction. So I don't know how to present about PSS there.
I think
Yeah.
you can just put it on your introduction.
Like just as a definition, like this is the public school system and how we
Yeah,
refer to
like because I'm also including my introduction, like the demographics of tourists in Saipan, because it doesn't really fit in my lit review, so I'm just putting it in my introduction to like, yeah, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I don't know. I would like to see how you want to put it in your intro or your lit review, but I'm almost thinking that you definitely in your method section, because your subject, it may not even be necessary until that point, but again, it depends on what you're saying in your intro and lit review, if you need to bring up PSS specifically at that point. Because is your introduction going to be a lot like your introduction in your presentation? Like you're kind of giving some background on American education, and yeah. So it may not even be necessary to your method to explain who's participating in your study.
Okay.
But do what you think is right, and your peer reviewer should be able to give you good feedback on that.